Miracles on Maple Hill by Virginia Sorensen. This book was awarded the 1957 Newbery Medal for the most distinguished contribution to American literature for children. And it was illustrated by Beth and Joe Crush, although you're probably not going to see many of the illustrations, but I'll show you the first one. So there are 14 chapters. I always like to know how many chapters there are before I get started. So there's 14 chapters. Chapter 1, there's all outdoors. "Mother, say the scoot thing again," Marley said. She slid forward in the car seat, talking right against her mother's neck over her coat collar. "Say it just the way your grandma said it." "Marley, again?" Mother asked. "And please don't breathe down my neck, dear." She was driving, and the road was narrow and snowy and worrisome. "Just say it once more, the way she said it." Marley noticed the look Mother gave Daddy, who sat beside her in the front seat. She could tell that Mother was afraid Daddy would object to hearing the same thing over and over. He was more tired than usual even. When he asked Mother to drive, he was always as tired as he could be. Now he sat with his eyes closed and his chin buried in the collar of his jacket. But it was for him, really, that Marley wanted Mother to say the scoot thing again. Maybe they didn't think she knew why they were going to Maple Hill, but she did. "Just once. I promise never to ask again. I promise," Marley said. Her brother Joe turned from the window for a change. The whole way up from Pittsburgh, he'd kept his face glued to it like an old fly. "Why don't you just say it to yourself?" he asked. "Mother said it 100 times." "I want her to say it, just once." If Joe asked her why she wanted Mother to say it, Marley couldn't have told him. The truth was that when Mother said those certain words, all the good feelings came back. Grandma's whole house and yard and her whole Maple Hill were in those words, just the way Mother had described them ever since Marley could remember. Grandma was in them too, with the way Mother said her voice was, like a bird's voice if it pretended to be cross but really wasn't. Mother was in them too, but in a special way. Not the way she was now, but the way she had been when she was Marley's age. Every summer, she had come to visit her grandma at Maple Hill, right here in Pennsylvania's corner. How so many things could be in a few words was something else Marley didn't know, but it was the same way the whole feel of school can be in the sound of a bell ringing, or the way the whole feeling of spring can be in one robin on a fence post. Daddy opened his eyes. "You might as well say it, Lee, and get it over with," he said. He did not look at Mother or at Marley or at anybody. He liked to do the driving himself, especially when a road was as bad as this, but he was too tired. Soon after he had come home, while people were still marveling that he had come back at all after being a soldier and a prisoner and everything, Marley had heard him say to Mother, "I think I'm going to be tired forever." But Mother had answered, "Of course you won't. You know, Dale, I've been thinking. We could go up to that old place of Grandma's, Maple Hill. What you need is all outdoors for a while." "Honestly, Marley, I don't see," Mother began, but she sighed, and then she said it. For a long time, when Marley was little, she had corrected Mother every time any one of the words was the least bit different. So now Mother always said it exactly right, every syllable. Every other word had to come strong, as in a nursery rhyme. "Now scoot, you two, for goodness sakes. Up here, there's all outdoors." "There," Marley said. Marley sat back again. If there was all outdoors, there couldn't be very much indoors, where all the trouble was. She could see the little old woman in a blue dress and a white apron, with her broom in her hand. She was pretending to sweep the children out, as Mother said, because they kept hanging around the house after they arrived. The first time Mother told about it, a long time ago, Marley had asked, "Why did you hang around? Why didn't you go outside and play?" Mother laughed and said, "Grandma thought it was because we were too used to being penned up in town. We were so used to having walls around us and ceilings over us that the sky and the country scared us to death. Grandma hated cities. We could hardly ever get her to come for a visit. She insisted that my brother and I come every summer out to Maple Hill. She told us the only place worth a grain of salt is where a child can go out and run as he pleases. All outdoors." Marley stared out the window on her side as Joe did on his. Maybe, she thought, it wasn't just because of the city. She could remember times that had been nice there and happy before Daddy ever went away, and even while he was gone sometimes. Mother paid a lot of attention, and they went to the museum on Sunday afternoons and to hear the Pittsburgh Symphony and for picnics in the park. Everybody felt sorry for Mother because Daddy was missing and nobody expected he would ever come back. But then he came. She wouldn't even think it was better before Daddy came back. Nobody must think such a terrible thing. But it was a worry. If a door slammed behind you, for instance, he'd shout, "Who slammed that door?" You'd start to tell him the wind made it slam, but there wasn't time. Mother always hurried in, saying, "Shh, shh, shh." Everything would be better in all outdoors. Mother expected it would be, and it would. Already things looked better. For 2 hours, the most wonderful outdoors, all hills and snow and big tall trees and farmhouses, had been going past the windows. Once in a while it was interrupted by a pretty little town, and then it began again. "Marley," Mother said anxiously, half turning her head but watching the road at the same time, "you mustn't expect it to be exactly the way I said. Grandma's been gone from Maple Hill for nearly 20 years. Uncle John's lived here off and on, but, well, it's an old run-down place, not like these lovely farms on the road at all." "I know that," Marley said, "but we're going to fix it up." Those were the words Mother used when Marley first heard them talking about it. Daddy had jumped the way he did sometimes and said, "You mean it's going to fix me up?" "Dale, I didn't say that. You meant it." "Well, all right then," Mother had said, going red in the face. "Why shouldn't we say it right out? I'm hoping it will." That had been just a little while ago, during the Christmas holidays. You expected everything to be wonderful at Christmas time, and the town was wonderful, with colored lights and decorated trees in every direction. Marvelous things were piled in every window along the streets downtown, and big organ music made the sidewalks sort of tremble. But this year something had gone wrong with everything. Daddy didn't even come from his room Christmas morning to see the presents. Mother had explained, trying to smile. He was tired and hurt and not really cross. He was sick and discouraged, not angry at them or at anybody. There was a lot of difference, Mother said. Of course it was true, but the house felt ugly and tight. Joe went off with his crowd right after breakfast. During the holidays, he found some place to go every day. Once, when they began to talk about coming to Maple Hill, Daddy had said, "I don't know whether I can do it, Lee. All that wood to cut and everything. Do you think I can swing an axe anymore?" "Why, of course," Mother said. "And Joe can help. He's 12, isn't he?" That's just the age Grandma used to say kids stopped being a nuisance and started being useful. In 2 years I'll be 12 too, Marley had thought. She was so interested in imagining the piles and piles of kindlings she would cut that she forgot to listen to what Mother and Daddy said next. She was reaching up in her mind to put a piece of wood on a pile higher than her head. But then Mother said something so interesting and wonderful she couldn't help hearing it. When I was a little girl up at Grandma's, Mother said, I was certain that Maple Hill was the place where all the miracles had happened. Daddy didn't laugh. For a minute, it was as if the two of them were holding their breath together. Then Daddy said, I'm afraid miracles don't happen anymore, even at Maple Hill. We'll go find out, Mother said. That was soon after Christmas. Now it was March, and here they were, going to find out. It's not very far from here, Mother said. Now all outdoors seemed to be mostly trees close along the road. There were bare limbs that bent against the car, scraping as it passed, brushing off their snow. Hemlocks were like frosted green. Mother shifted gears, and the car was a big black noise in the middle of a huge white quietness. What a hill, Mother said. I'm not even sure this car is going to make it. They all leaned forward as if that might help somehow. The car was really struggling. I've heard stories about these spring roads, Mother said, pretending not to mind, but it was always summer when I came, and I never believed them. The car stood still then, its wheels singing and whirling. Marley saw Daddy's face set hard the way it always did when he was angry or upset. His cheeks sank in, and she could see his heart beating in his neck. Mother stepped on the gas, and the wheels sang still louder, and the engine roared like a truck. Shall I get out and push? Joe asked eagerly. That's all we need, Daddy said in an angry voice. Just Joe to get out and push. Joe's face went red. Daddy was white. Mother roared the engine louder and louder. Stop it, Lee. You'll only spin the wheels, Daddy said. When the sound of the car died, silence was suddenly everywhere. It seemed coming and going in every direction, and they were in the middle of it. The front of the car tipped upward on the bare beginning of the long hill. It can't be far to Chris's place now, Mother said. They can probably pull us out. People here are used to such things. We didn't even think to get chains, Daddy said. What farmers we'll be. Mother, Marley began, but Joe interrupted her. He said just what she'd meant to say, except that he said I, and she had meant to say we. Mother, I'll get my boots on and go ahead and tell 'em, Joe said. I'll go too, Marley said. Joe looked at her in a superior way. You just slow me down, he said. That was the way he talked to her lately, even when it wasn't true. She never could say it wasn't true, though, because every time it made an argument, and Daddy thought every argument was a fight and had to be stopped instantly. He said there was plenty of fighting going on in the world without them doing any of it. Mother hesitated. I don't know what else. She looked at Daddy. My boots are in the trunk, Joe said, and out he went. Mine are too. Get mine too, Marley cried. He'll be sopping wet before he even gets his boots on, Mother said. Who would have thought there'd still be snow like this up here? Her voice was worried. Daddy didn't say one word. He just sat still, staring out of the windshield up the long hill. Mother, Daddy, can't I go too? Joe knows I can go as fast as he can. He knows I can, Marley cried. Hush now, Mother said. There's no use both of you catching your death of cold. Mother, we wouldn't. Don't argue, Marley. Please, Mother said. She gave Marley the look that said, now don't talk about it any more or you'll worry Daddy again. Please? Marley, you heard what I said. But Mother, Marley, don't argue. Daddy's voice was fierce. Joe scrambled back in the car with his boots and pulled them on, jamming his jeans inside. How important he acted. You'd have thought he was the President of the United States or something. For a minute Marley hated him. If he just said he'd like her to go along, she could. But he wouldn't say it for the world. She always said she'd like him to go along wherever she was going, and it was even true. But he'd never say it. Never, never, never. "Please, Joe," she whispered so Daddy and Mother wouldn't hear. But Joe didn't seem to hear her either. Mother said, "Joe, you'll likely see the Crisp place as soon as you get to the top of the hill. It's a big white house down a lane, green shutters. Behind it is a huge red barn. I'm pretty sure it's the next place." Her voice didn't sound sure at all. "Just tell whoever is at the next place," Daddy said. "I hope I'm right," Mother said. "They're such wonderful people, and we're such good friends to Grandma and to John and me." Joe got out. He acted more important than ever, pulling his gloves tight up over his sleeves. Marley said once more, "Mother," but Mother looked at her hard. Joe started out, turning to smile and wave. Marley hated him again, this time even more, but in a minute he was walking alone up the hill, littler and littler, and the three sat silently, watching him. By the time he got to the top of the hill, she loved him again and opened the door and hopped out on the running board to wave. He waved back. His hat looked very red and small, a dot on the white road against the sky. "For heaven's sake, close the door. No use freezing while we wait," Daddy said. But Marley hardly heard. "I smell smoke," she said. "Look, look, right there." Only a little distance up the hill, on the side where she stood, was a wreath of blue smoke winding into the air. It looked lovely, curling upward from the trees. "Mother, may I go and see? May I?" she cried. Mother and Daddy looked at each other. They both looked up the hill where Joe had disappeared. "I can see a tiny little road. It turns in there, see, behind us. We didn't even notice it before." "It can't do any harm, can it, while we're waiting? Then she won't—" Mother stopped. She almost said, "Then she won't be making a noise and fussing and being in the way." Marley saw their looks, saying, "Why not?" and scrambled out for her own boots, using the tramped places Joe had made. Now it was her turn to start out, to turn and wave from the little road, to follow the deep ruts. "Don't go far. Come right back," Mother called. "It's got horse tracks," Marley cried back, "and tractor tracks." Then the road turned into the trees. How beautiful, how beautiful! The land went up and down with snow everywhere, unbroken except where the little road wound through. But then there was another little road going into the trees, and another. She stood still, wondering. The tracks went around, over there and over there in a big circle, and she stood staring. Every tree was hanging with bright buckets, and every bucket had a little pointed lid like a cap. Once she had seen a picture in a book at school. Then she heard somebody ahead chopping wood. The sound of the axe coming down was sharp and clear. And there he was, the wood chopper, swinging up and swinging down again. The sound of the axe hitting the wood reached Marley as he lifted it up again. He stood by an immense pile of wood, and behind the pile was a little brown house. It had a high brown smokestack that the blue smoke was pouring from, and an extra little roof that seemed to be sitting on great billowing white clouds of steam. She glanced back toward the road. It was as if another step would bring the ordinary world completely to an end, and this would be Wonderland. Even the sights and sounds didn't match here. Near her a bucket hung against a tree, and she distinctly heard a sound of drip, drip, drip. The man saw her as she came. He stopped chopping and lifted a hand to wave. He was smiling. Then suddenly he dropped the axe and began to walk toward her. She didn't know whether to go on walking herself or turn and run. But she went on walking, and as he came closer, he cried suddenly, "Lee! For goodness sakes, Lee!" She could smell the smoke on his overalls when he held out his hand. He smelled wonderful, like a smoked ham. His face was round and red and fresh, and he was absolutely huge all over. His hand closed over hers, and his laugh was as big as he was in his huge blue jeans and sweater. "Imagine me calling you Lee," he said. "You must be her girl Marley. But you're your mother all over again. I'm Mr. Chris." Before she had time to say anything about the car or the hill or the trouble or anything else, he laughed and said, "Can you smell that, Marley? Did you get that whiff just then from the sugar house? I told my wife this morning, this time Lee's coming for the first breath of spring." She had got it. It was absolute sweetness, like a drift of scent from a lilac bush, like passing an orchard in full bloom, but different, a different sweetness. "Your great-grandma used to say there was all outdoors in that smell," Mr. Chris said. "She called it the first miracle when the sap came up." She looked at him in surprise. So that's where Mother had got the idea of the miracles. Where are your folks? At the house?" he asked. In 2 minutes they were on the way to the rescue. There were 2 big horses that he used to gather sap from trees on the steep hills where a tractor would go head over wheels, he said. But the tractor was the thing to take that car home in a hurry. Marley sat beside him. The tractor was bright orange against the snow. She felt like a queen in a high chariot as they rolled off along the little road among the trees. Until next time.